Hi, this is Chris the Credit Guy, and thanks for watching this video. It's part of a series of free videos that I have on my website, christhecreditguy.com, and you can get that video series by going to my website. I'm also available for credit consultations, and we can arrange that via email. My email is info@christhecreditguy.com. This video is called Improving Your Debt Ratio. So first I'm going to explain what a debt ratio is in case you don't fully understand what that is. Then we're going to go over how your debt ratio negatively affects your score, and then a couple different strategies for how to get those points back by doing a couple different strategies. So first of all, the debt ratio. It's quite simply the balance that you have compared to the limit. So, if let's say you have a $500 balance on a credit card and you have a $1,000 limit on that card, then your debt ratio is 500 over 1,000 or 50%. So you're right there in the middle. It seems like the golden rule of debt ratio is trying to keep your balances below 30% of the limit. So let's just say you have a $1,000 limit on a card. You want to keep the balance as low as possible, and best if you can keep it below $300. The challenge there is for a lot of people, the department stores, they'll give you a very small limit, like a $200 or $300 limit. So it's very difficult to keep the balance, like let's say under $80 or $90. That's the challenge. So that's how you calculate a debt ratio. Now I'm going to go into the three different ways that your credit score is negatively affected because of your debt ratio. The first way is on a card-by-card basis. So each individual credit card, as your balance gets over 30% of the limit, your score starts to go down. So quite simply, look at each credit card you have, and if your balance is over 30% of the limit that you have, then your score is most likely being negatively affected because of that. The second way that the score is damaged or drops because of your debt ratio is on an overall basis. So to figure out that debt ratio, what you want to do is add up all of your debts on your revolving credit card accounts. So add up all your balances, and then divide that by the sum of all your credit limits. So if you have 3 cards, add up all the balances, then add up all 3 of the limits, and then divide those 2 numbers, and then that's your overall debt ratio. And again, you want to try to keep that below 30% as well. The third way that your score is negatively affected is by having multiple accounts with balances. So believe it or not, it's slightly better to have fewer cards with balances, but then maybe have one of them with maybe a higher debt ratio. So that I'm getting into a strategy already, but that strategy may be to, let's say if you have 2 or 3 credit cards, you may be better suited to transfer the balances if you can, or pay off some of the cards down to 0, and then keep the balance on 1 card. That way you're helping to go from 3 credit card balances down to 2 and down to 1, and then better obviously if we can get it down to 0. So those are the 3 ways that your score is negatively affected because of your debt ratio. And knowing that, there are lots of different strategies that we can go over to help you to get the most bang for your buck, or keep as many points on your credit score as possible. The first one I want to go over is what I call the bottoms-up strategy. And quite simply, that is just a strategy where let's say you have 3 or 4 credit cards with balances. My bottoms-up strategy is to pay the minimums on 3 of them and put as much effort as you can into paying the smallest balance off. What that does is that allows you to, as quick as possible, go from 4 credit card balances down to 3, and then when you have 3, put all of your energy and effort and extra money that you have into paying, again, the smallest remaining credit card balance, and pay that off as quickly as possible so that you get down to 2 balances, and then down to 1, and then hopefully down to 0. So that's my bottoms-up strategy. Again, it's very effective to getting you the most points back on your score because of the debt ratio as quick as possible. There are also a couple other strategies that are pretty important. Again, knowing how your score is affected by having debts, I've come up with these strategies. The next one I want to go over is basically to dispel a myth. You never want to close a credit card. And the reason is because when you close a credit card, you're then eliminating all of that open and available credit. So what that does is it makes your overall debt ratio a lot worse. I hope you can understand that. The best way to describe it is, let's say you have 2 credit cards, and one of them is a $1,000 balance and a $1,000 limit, and the next one is a $1,000 limit but a 0 balance. So if they're both open and active cards, you have a total of a $1,000 credit card balance, and you have a $2,000 available credit limit in total. So you're there again at the 50% level. If you close that second card and get rid of that in that calculation, you're then left with a $1,000 balance and a $1,000 total open available credit. So you then just doubled your debt ratio. You're now at 100%. You're completely maxed out. You may have just lost 50, maybe even 100 credit score points just by doing that. So again, hopefully you take away from this just a few things. Again, the bottoms-up strategy: never close your credit cards. It's, I know, very difficult in these tough financial times. It seems like the credit card companies are doing whatever they can to force you to close your cards by either lowering your limits, which again hurts you, or raising the rates, which is very tough financially. But do whatever you can to keep your cards open, and that way you keep as many credit score points as possible. The other strategy that we use is basically to keep the cards that you have open, keep them active. Your cards could be closed due to inactivity, and I'm sure you've had that happen before. Where you maybe have a card, and then it, for whatever reason you stop using it, and then after a while it's just inactive and then not used. The strategy there is to just use one card, use that for maybe a couple months, make sure you pay it off or at least pay the minimum. And then put that aside and move on to card number 2 and use that for a couple months. And then move on to card number 3 and use that for a couple months. That way you keep 3 or hopefully 4 cards open and active, and that way you keep all that history, because that'll again help you in one of the other pillars of credit, which is keeping a long length of credit history. It's also going to help you with your debt ratio. Again, this was some helpful information about improving your debt ratio. Very helpful information, because again, that seems, in my experience, to be the second most damaging pillar of credit after the payment history. So work on that debt ratio and get your score back up. As always, if you're watching this on the internet, you can get my complete video series on my website, christhecreditguy.com. And if you want to go over your situation with me, I'd be happy to do that. We can arrange a private consultation, and you can do that via email, and you can email me at info@christhecreditguy.com. Thanks again for watching.